Hey guys, my name is John, but a lot of my best friends call me Tugboat. On this podcast, I like to have a lot of difficult conversations and record them for you to listen to. In my personal life, I'm a musician, a biker, and a theology nut, and I love having great conversations with good friends. On today's podcast, we've got a really good friend of mine, local TV host, Jason Piercey. He's also a realtor. He's a very intelligent young man, and he's been a friend of mine for over 15 years. We both come from psychology backgrounds, doing that in university, which we discussed during the podcast. And on this podcast today, we discuss some of the mental health issues associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. We also discuss some of the economic fallout that'll come from this, as well as what we're doing to navigate the space of parenting during a pandemic, especially with our children being home and us being home full time. It's definitely a different change of pace that we know a lot of you people are going through right now. So at the end of it, of course, as always, we clued up with a discussion about beliefs and faith systems. So I hope that you guys find this really interesting. And if you do, please, as always, like and share, tell your friends. Hope you enjoy. Here's my conversation with Jason Piercey.
All right, welcome Jason Piercey to the Tugboat Talks podcast. We are live and on the air. Welcome, buddy.
Hey man, how are you?
So, full disclosure for anybody listening, me and Jace were actually in psychology classes together back in Memorial University days, and then we were co-workers at the Realty Executives of Realty Executives of what? What was it called?
Hey Johns.
Realty Executives of St. John's with our good buddy Nev, and I was working with our good buddy Keith over there at the time. And then most recently, we just continued to cross paths often at Starbucks. But Jace, so shout out for you, Jace, a little bit. You are one of the hosts of Rogers Out of the Fog, local. And you've also got another show. What's the other one called?
Sam and Jason Unfiltered. It's a podcast basically, but because of my connections with Rogers, and Rogers does a lot of community stuff, and they do a lot of access shows, they allowed us to broadcast it as a live television show while we're recording our podcast. So that's called Sam and Jason Unfiltered, and that's with Sam Pico, who was one of the fan favorites from Big Brother Canada 7.
Okay, sick. So, like, you have way more celeb friends than me. I just have you. But, okay, so the reason that, and I had approached you a while about this before I even had some success with the other one.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing a podcast forever.
Well, we've been talking forever because we love to talk, and we both appreciate a great conversation. So. Yes. Today, specifically, I wanted to get you on here because we are in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, of course. Under lockdown, Newfoundlanders are forced to be antisocial. I got to be honest with you, I'm loving life, dude. I'm eating so many baked goods. I'm recording music.
I gotta tell you, I'm an extreme extrovert.
Right.
And you know this about me. So you have extroverted tendencies, but you're not an extrovert.
Well, but see, I was. And I think now that I've lived with a woman who's an introvert for 10 years, I think I've kind of morphed a little bit.
Really? Okay, so I need to show you like a little picture if this is cool.
Yeah, do it up.
This is me, and this is you.
Yes, exactly.
So the introvert is on vacation, and it's like, I'm chained. I'm dying. So the amount of Facebook Live videos and Instagram chats and recording stuff and posting it and podcasts, like all of the things that I can do just to speak to other people, it's physical distancing, not social distancing. Let's not lose our minds.
Exactly, because I got to be honest with you, in the recent couple of days, man, I'm so connected with the Club Brothers. I'm so connected with like dear friends of mine, like good coworkers and stuff that I've had recently. I've been on the phone with people every night. Like, so I am still very extroverted. But my introvert tendencies are definitely starting to take over. Yeah, buddy, take it off. So
it's getting warm.
So let's get into the COVID thing with the way that the economy now is, like, basically everything that's not non-essential is shut down in Newfoundland. Like, all my friends in the power sports industry.
Can we talk about what's non-essential?
That'd be a great conversation, I think.
Because I bought this today, but I can't go to the dentist or the chiropractor or get a massage for the nagging shoulder injury that I've had for 10 years. But I can buy as much of this as I want.
Newfie's got to have their booze, man.
Now, I understand that for some people, that is effectively medicine. Both you and I studied psychology. We know what the DSM is. We know that the Diagnostic Statistical Manual. We know that there are people for whom alcohol is a physical dependency and therefore a medicine of sorts.
Yeah.
I get that. But do we really need, like, they're not really losing sales. Sales are probably up. The amount of, like, in 20 years, our country is going to be run by a whole bunch of day drinkers who homeschooled.
Who self-medicated. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And homeschooled their kids, and now those kids will run the country. I'm going to Mars in 20 years. I'm not doing it.
Do you not have faith in people who homeschool and day drink currently? Because that's a lot of people, I got a feeling.
Well, I mean, it's me. Yeah.
Listen,
sorry.
You want to talk about physical dependency? My wife, I guarantee you, has a physical dependency on caffeine. She's hard on caffeine, right?
I do. 100% I do. I also have a physical dependency on this.
Oh, dude, listen, I don't know if I told you, but I developed tendonitis last year. Well, honest to God, between riding motorcycle, right? Video games, when I had all the free time in the world,
yeah.
And playing drums, because contrary to, you're supposed to play drums with a grip like this, but everybody and their dog plays like this.
Well, I mean, it depends. You play like the side kind of classic sort of, or are you just like Travis?
I'm a basher. Like I've always been a basher. I'm made to make. I'm perfectly engineered to make maximum impact over short periods of time. Right?
Bulldog.
Yeah, I'm just straight up a bull, homie. That's all it is. So, okay, so essential. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like now, do you think that gets increased emphasis because of the fact that this is a medical state of emergency? We'll say. So that, like, the medical professionals are the ones calling the shots, right?
Yeah, no, I think it gets less. Like during Snowmageddon, if the liquor stores weren't open during Snowmageddon.
No, that's a valid point. Anyway, let's diverge from that. What do you think? So we both know a ton of people. Well, me, for example, I'm laid off. I'm not on work right now, which is hilarious because we'll get into a mental health discussion. I want to come piggyback to that again.
Yeah.
But we both know a number of people. Nev was telling me that his real estate is so busy right now, but as an asthmatic, he's like, you can't pay me enough right now to go out and do like.
Oh, no, if he gets sick, he's going to die.
Yeah. So this is our good buddy, Nevin Hollett. He's a big real estate guy. He does shout out to Nev. He does EXP Realty, which you've heard of as well.
I'm a part of these, yeah.
But for friends like him and my buddy Jay Stock, who's a severe asthmatic, like that dude had a Jay as well. That dude had a really bad go the other day because they had to go to the hospital because he was having such a bad asthma attack. And they were, I mean, how concerned do you have to be right now to go? What?
You'd be scared to death.
Scared to death, man, to go to a hospital right now as an asthmatic.
If we could get into childcare as like parents and like having kids and not having like the adult time away from kids, if we can get into that later, that'd be cool, because I lost all of my babysitters because my exes, or I think the right word, because we're still married, I think the right word is estranged.
Right, sure, yeah.
Lisa, my little girl's mom, her mother, Hannah, has been like a weekly babysitter since day one, but she's in her 70s and she's been a smoker since probably she could walk.
Yeah, so for her, limiting contact right now is imperative.
She's so high risk, so that changes everything. I don't have that anymore. But anyway, go back to where you were.
No, yeah. So we'll get more into that again as well because well, listen, it's a good segue. So the reality is like number one is you as as doing your co-parenting thing, and I guess your child obviously bounces back and forth between the two of you, right?
Yes.
Um, and I will listen. I'll say this on the air because I know you're an open book, and I do have a ton of respect for you. The fact that you used to get up when you were going through the initial stages of your separation or whatever, the fact that you used to get up and go to your house and get your kid ready for school and be there, after supper and get her to bed and do all that stuff. I mean, you were working twice as hard. So I got to be honest with you, man, as a Christian, as a biker, as somebody who stands up and believes in like respect and loyalty, I got to give you a major shout out because you were working twice as hard to be as good of a dad, because I value that a ton because of the fact that I want to do the things that I want to do. Like I want to do music. I want to ride my motorcycle. I want to be involved in the Christian motorcycle club, all that stuff. But I don't want my girls to pay the price for it. Right. And so anyway, shout out to you on that, because I think that was one of the coolest things that I've ever heard of for you to put in that amount of work. Right.
Well, I really appreciate that. But I think it also, like, I mean, it needs to be said that, I mean, I wouldn't want anybody watching to think that like I'm without flaw when it comes to being a dad going through a separation.
No,
Like
100%. Of course.
There's as much of our split or more that's my fault. And as much as partners and husband and wife, Lisa and I didn't work. I couldn't ask for a better mother, what's wrong with my face?
Well, you're newfie and you're on the wine. That's what's wrong with your face.
I'm not on the wine. I had a glass of wine.
I just said that because I know there's going to be a bunch of religious people watching, so I had to say it.
Listen, like Jesus can drink wine, so can I.
Yeah, 100%. I'm down. So the thing is now is like what's crazy for me is even this week, my kid's 4 years old today. All she wanted to do was make him.
Happy birthday, Rudy.
No, sorry. Not today, but she's 4 years old as of today. Anyway, sorry. Misconstrued that. Anyway, today we made a music video. Okay, so we set up a camera. I did one of those little weird electro songs that I did a little while ago. So we made a music video. It was a great time. But like she was lying on her mats the other day playing with her dolls, and she says to her mom, when is the virus going to be over? Like that kills you as a parent. You're watching a 4-year-old kid. She can't go see her friends. Right? She can't go to the gym with her mom, which is where her mom works. She can't, you know what I mean? Like we're severely limited. She loves being home. We're having the best time with the three of us in the house. Me and the wife haven't killed each other yet, which is great. And we're coping well. But for a 4-year-old kid to go through such a heavy thing at such a young age is wild.
If they can even fathom, for you sailors, which is 6 feet, if you can even fathom, like, they have the ability to understand the magnitude of what is happening around them. I think at 4 years old, it's not so much that you know the reality, like globally, you understand your personal impact. My little girl yesterday, I guess she's got a lot of my DNA in her. Well, obviously she does, but for like the expression and personality, she said to me, because sometimes we make little videos because she knows that daddy does video stuff like with TV and with social media and everything, and through my real estate business. She asked if we could make a video, and I said, yeah, sure we can. And she wanted to make a video about telling people how to help the earth. And like, so I was like, okay, baby, like, let's make the video. Like, let's get ready. Yep. She's a no, daddy, no, like live so everybody could see it.
Right.
Like we did like a 15 or 20 minute Facebook live video that if anybody looked for Jason Piercey and saw that face, you could go there and you could watch that video. And like, I think that children, their brains are so much more plastic than ours are as adults, right?
Okay.
Like if you think about the critical period for learning a new language, it's so much easier to earn a new language prior to being 4 years old than it is when you're an adult.
Same thing with music too, man. If you like kids, like, I didn't start playing drums till I was 17. I honestly think I was robbed of like my best first 2 or 3 years that I could have had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
From an aptitude perspective.
yeah, 100%.
I think at this age, the ability to understand these things is so much higher than it is for us. I remember reading something one time when it came to technology, and this is not a perfect analog for it, like, but it's close. As an analogy, anything that is in existence for you when you're less than 30 years old or less than 25 years old, we'll say, is normal, has always been there. Anything that comes into existence from the time you're 25 to the time you're 40 is new, and you can make money off of it. But anything that comes into existence after you're 35 or 40 is weird and unnatural.
Right.
Right? So for children right now, this is just normal. This is the new normal. They're going to go to the grocery store in gloves. They're just going to buy gloves now.
Yeah.
People are just going to wear masks. Like you could take, if you go to Google Earth and you go walk down streets of Beijing, you're going to see a ton of people wearing masks. That ain't new.
No.
It's new here.
Right.
But it's old hat. And for our kids, this ain't new. This just is.
Yeah, well, I guess it's like people who are slightly younger than us don't remember growing up without the internet. Like, I remember I remember getting the internet.
I remember getting a Nintendo.
Well, yeah, so do I. But I remember being about, how old would I have been? Probably grade 11. So you're talking, so like 98, right? And you know what I mean, getting on ICQ and trying to mac on chicks that you couldn't even talk to in school, you know what I mean, like that.
Watching like pictures of women like load line by line.
So that's the crazy thing now, is like parenting in this. Number one, coping with being home with your kid all day is a whole new skill set for a lot of people, right?
Oh.
Like entertaining a child. Dude, I was actually relieved when I got laid off from work because I was so sick of pretending to do work while I was hanging out with my kid. Right? Like I didn't have any of my coworkers on Facebook, and I literally put it on social media and said, so how many hours do I have to pretend to work before I actually can call it a day? Because I think there's a lot of people in that boat right now.
And you're not doing anything.
No, I think the kicker is like work from home, just get shit done, but it doesn't matter when. Like we're recording a podcast at 8:30 at night. Is this work? No, but is it productive? Insanely.
Well, I would argue it is work for me.
Sure it is for you, because you'll get some more publicity. You could get real estate business out of this. You could
personal branding.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So I mean, I would argue it. In fact, now that we got that said, I'm gonna add the fact that we're doing this to my Instagram story. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, buddy, do it up. And while you're doing that, I'm going to
you got a handle for me?
What?
You got a handle for me to tag?
No.
Not yet.
No. We're not that worried about it. I've already been, so we got guys in the club that do like YouTube videos and stuff like professionally, like video production. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, you got to do this and this and this and this. And I was like, no, I'm just going to put it out.
And you know what? That's it. You have to start. Everybody starts.
Listen, and it was, I had enough recording gear down here to be able to pull it off like reasonably.
So here's the way I will put it. Kylie Jenner there was a point in time when Kylie Jenner had 1 follower.
There you go. I like that. I don't think I got much in common with Kylie Jenner, but well, listen, we'll take it.
You're both pretty curvy.
So with all these businesses that are shut down, number one, like for me, you know, before I did the food sales thing, I did I did power sports sales, right? And with the power sports sales stuff, like all of those shops are shut down, right?
Yeah.
what other like the music stores basically like at one point in time was like, yeah, you can come in and get your stuff, but then you got to leave again, right?
Yeah.
Because most people are going in there to play pianos or guitars or sit around or whatever, waste time, right?
Touching everything.
Just touching everything, right? And so I really don't know, man. Like I know everybody's pushing back their mortgages and they're, the banks are taking advantage of that, which is heartbreaking.
Well, I mean, do you want to talk a little bit about the way that's structured?
I want to talk about everything, so go for it.
So I gave you a hashtag, Tugboat Talks.
There you go.
So a lot of people are, let me reverse a little. I believe that people genuinely do the best they can with what is available to them at all times.
Right.
I don't think people are inherently bad. I do think all of us were good. We just have dark times, and it's our dark times that make us think and do dark things. But we try our best all of the time. It's just
right.
Sometimes we mess up and we're not very good at it, right?
Sure.
We try. The way this stuff is going with the banks, like you mentioned mortgage deferrals and it being opportunistic for a bank. I believe that somebody can make money off of you making a decision that's a good idea for you in the short term.
Yeah, no, you know what? That's a valid point because you as a real estate professional makes money on people making good decisions. You know what I mean? Like, moving into their permanent home or their, when I moved out here a year and a half ago or so, this was an incredible decision for us. Now that I've been laid off work from a job where I was making less money than my old job, it's a little tougher. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. We call it spade a spade, but like Newfoundland right now is in really hard shape.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that anybody took money took from you, right? So, like for instance, my mortgage. This is a rental, by the way. But complete transparency. I'm not a fancy guy. I pay the mortgage on the 2-story house that my family custom built together like 6.5 years ago. I live in a 1-bedroom basement apartment. I pay $700 a month in rent for because I care more about the rest of that than I do, how
where
fancy
you sleep.
Yeah. So, but I didn't even call. You can just go to the website and apply. I applied for a mortgage deferral from Scotiabank just because in my line of work, I mean, let's just say you wanted to sell your house and I was your agent. Do you want a bunch of strangers tramping through your house right now, looking in your cupboards and using your toilet and what? You don't, right?
No.
So I'm kind of, from a financial perspective, I'm kind of dead in the water.
Yeah.
I just am. That's just the way that it is. So any little bit of money that I have right now needs to be squirreled away so I can buy groceries for my little girl and red wine.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? So
do you think that the I have a theory, and I'm probably wrong, but I feel like when this is done and it's all shut down and everybody's good to go, I think that people are going to come back out with a vengeance. I think people are going to be riding motorcycles again, in my circles, like hardcore. I think people are going to be going to parties. I think George Street is going to be railed, because people are going to be socializing with a vengeance. Do you think that business is going to come back with a vengeance too as well? Or do you think that this is going to be, do you think there's going to be an economic fallout that carries longer than the actual physical symptoms?
Yeah, there has to be. And the reason there has to be is because, like, the basics of economics is that people have this artificial thing that we call money that has like an arbitrary amount of value. And its value is half determined by what you can trade it for when it comes to goods and services. Right? So, like, this is supposedly worth $12 or $14. So if I don't have $12 or $14, I can't have that instead, right? The problem is after all of this clears up, and it's not going to be like, okay, everything's normal. It's going to be in phases, right? But if it did go, everything is normal, nobody would have any funds with which to exchange for things. And that's the issue. So there will absolutely be an economic hangover, but how long that hangover lasts and how heavy it is going to depend entirely on how we manage the transition from this total isolation or this total physical and social distancing into the real world again. And I think the majority of people are probably going to make the assumption that this is going to be a shorter transition than it actually will. Like, we're not talking a month, 2 months, 3 months. Like, it's going to be a year before life is normal. And even then, people are going to select their avocados with gloves on.
Well, I mean, you think about when, like, in my previous line of work selling motorsport stuff, when Alberta was on wheels, people were coming home and they would buy $30,000 side-by-sides fully loaded before they got off the plane, right? And
like, can we just talk about how stupid that is?
yeah, but there's also, once again, these people that's all they've ever known, dude. When I lived in Kenmount Terrace, and I lived on Great Eastern Avenue, there were
around the corner from me.
Yeah, there was like 6 houses across the street that went up for sale while I was living there. And a lot of it was people who were making good money in Alberta and just didn't know what it was like to make less than $100,000 a year.
And didn't know what it was like to make less than $200,000 a year.
Yeah, maybe, right?
Right.
And so do you think how do you feel about this statement? I feel as though the people whose cash flow is uninterrupted, I think it's their responsibility now to continue spending money and living as though everything was normal.
Okay, people who do not have a financial impact from this pandemic.
So if you're getting paid full-time, regular, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If anything, for some people now, this might be a break because, yeah, okay, my work is impacted slightly, but, you know, I got a bit of a mortgage break, and so I'm off the hook for a couple of grand for a couple of months or whatever. Like, you know, they need to be going to Starbucks as much because they're, you know, the people behind the counter need to be making money selling coffees. They need to be supporting restaurants because the restaurants need to stay open. They need to be, you know what I mean? Like, this is sort of where I'm coming from.
This is where, so it's a domino effect, right?
Yeah.
And we can talk about the socioeconomic side of the domino effect, like the micro part of it. And then we can talk about the macro part of it, because all of this money comes from somewhere, right? So we can talk about the federal stimulus packages. Like, if you can apply for EI now if you're EI eligible without the waiting period or the medical qualification.
Right.
Like, which I encourage you to do. There's no reason for you not to do that.
Dude, the government is paying me to do podcasts. I'm 100% good with that.
Exactly. And for somebody like myself who's self-employed, I can apply for stuff also. I can't do it yet, not probably until the 6th of April. And to be honest, I don't even know if I qualify, but I can apply. But that money comes from somewhere. That $75 billion or whatever it is comes from somewhere. That money has to be paid back somehow. It doesn't mean that I pay it back as a loan, but it means it's a reduction in the healthcare or military or transportation portions of the provincial or federal budget. Like, all of that money comes from somewhere.
Right.
The more that is given to people to allow our economy to stay afloat now, the harder or the deeper the hardship after the fact is going to be. Now, we can talk about it from an ethical or moral perspective. We can talk about it from an evolutionary perspective. We can talk about it from a political perspective. They're all totally different answers.
Yeah.
From an evolutionary perspective, I'm sorry, survival of the fittest. If you can't find a way to feed your family now, then, oh well, but that's not ethical. That's
It's
not
also not the reality. Well, it is the reality for some people, but I don't think anybody's going to starve to. Well, you know what? There are people who are hungry right now.
Absolutely, there
Yeah,
are.
that's a sad reality too, man, and that's the fact of the matter.
Speak to the Food Sharing Association.
Yeah.
Chrissy Andrews and Shannigan did a live concert that got thousands and thousands and thousands of live viewers, not even after the fact, all meant to be donations to the Food Sharing Association. You don't have to pay for the concert. Donate to they got 6 donations.
That was it?
At that time.
Okay.
This is almost 2 weeks ago.
Right. And that is devastating, man, because I know people straight up who are in a really bad place right now. And I would just so happen to be smart enough to squirrel away a few dollars ahead of time and not.
Listen, I'm not paying my rent. I'm not.
Right.
I'm not. He can evict me. Okay. I'll go to my parents around the bay. I'm not going to pay my rent because I don't know what else I can use that money for. I'm not going to pay my mortgage. All right. Take my house from me. I don't care. I can repair my credit. I can't go back in time and feed my kid when she was hungry.
No, that's right. And the reality is me and you, we're a couple of prissy towny boys, but we'll slap on a shotgun and go out and kill a moose too if it means our family's going to eat. 100%.
You won't get a moose with a shotgun, but I mean, I'll teach you how to do it with a 303 if you want.
Yeah, whatever. Right? Listen. Anyway, we won't get into that. I was going to say in my line of work, a shotgun's more effective, but that's a really bad joke that some police officer somewhere is going to listen to and think I'm serious.
Well, I mean, this is what you get for being in a motorcycle club, John.
Listen, we won't get into all that, man, because
I think it is of note that I interviewed you on Out of the Fog.
You did interview me on Out of the Fog, yeah, as the president of. So what I'm doing is I'm leaving the club name out of it, just in case I say something that somebody disagrees with. Anyway, so let's get into the idea of the COVID lockdown, and let's just talk about mental health in general, and then as it relates to COVID. You and I have both, like we said, Bachelor of Science in Psychology.
Mine's actually a Bachelor of Arts.
Oh, yours is. Oh, well, I got that one up on you.
No, well, I mean, you don't. But
it just means that I had to do. I forget what the difference was. I had to do 2 more lab courses.
Yeah, and a science, and you didn't have to do a minor.
And no, that's right. And for the record, I did vertebrates biology twice and failed it both times.
And if you had to pick one of us that was an artist and you looked into the background,
100%. 100%. You are absolutely correct.
4 businesses.
Dude, and you are far more. You've always been more analytical. Always been more analytical, and I would dare say scientific than me. I've always been throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. That's always been the way I've been.
And that's how science is.
So
that's all science is. You throw it at the wall, you see if it sticks, but when it doesn't, you're not afraid to dismiss it and be romantic about the fact that you thought you were going to be right and you were wrong.
Right.
That's where people get it wrong. Science is not about being in love with your theory of how something is. Science is about tossing it to the curb immediately when evidence suggests you were wrong.
But see, the funny thing about that is that's how I treat my faith walk as a Christian. And that's what a lot of people in the church, that's what a lot of people in the church don't do, right? They hold on to these beliefs really tight for fear that somebody's going to come take them from them. And I'm like, no, come take it. You just got to replace it with something that's a better version.
A better version or
a more refined version?
We'll repeatable version.
A more refined version.
Sure. Okay.
You know what I mean?
What were you going to there?
What'd you say?
What were you about to get into there? I interrupted you.
No. Listen, that's a whole different conversation. Much like, we could get into a whole different conversation about the fallout from Muskrat Falls, the price of oil, and COVID right now on Newfoundland. But neither one of us, I don't think, are uniquely qualified to have that discussion.
I'm certainly not uniquely qualified, definitely not. But I can tell you that I really do feel like for the majority of Newfoundlanders, once 2042 or 2043 comes and we have a completely owned outright asset worth billions and billions of dollars that still, this is Churchill Falls I'm talking about, that still makes us money, then we won't hate Joey so much. See, here's the problem with politics. It's a politician's job to keep his or her job.
Right.
Not a politician's job to make change. It's kind of like if you talk about, like, I consider myself from a real estate perspective to be a marketer more than I am a salesperson. If you go to Browning Harvey here locally that makes Pepsi.
Yeah.
The marketing director for Browning Harvey, the chief marketing officer, it's not that person's job to make changes. It's that person's job to keep their job.
Right.
So people are afraid to make long-term changes at the risk of losing their own employment. That's why leadership has this sort of built-in paradox. Because Dwight Ball, for instance, it's Dwight Ball's job to make sure everybody likes him so he keeps his job. But when you're in a really hard place, everybody can't like you, and therefore you can't keep your job if you do the thing that's hard.
And didn't Dwight just quit right before all this shit went down?
But yeah, a resignation over time based on finding succession. Yes. But only as leader of the party, he'll still be a member of the House of Assembly out in Deer Lake.
Gotcha. Okay, let's circle back to the mental health piece, because I know that you said not that long ago, right? Did you get ADD diagnosed?
ADHD. Yeah.
Okay.
That's only one of my mental illnesses.
Oh, well, good. Would you like to? So the reason I want to get into this is because I've always been a mental health advocate, just as somebody who went through, psychology, in school and whatever. But I have to be honest with you. I had some friends and some family members who were, riddled with anxiety and this and that, and never really gave them the credit probably for what they were going through. Although I was open to the conversation, right? And most recently went through, well, first of all, the bankruptcy of my former employer, which I was with for 7 years, which was the best job ever. And then transitioned out of that into a new job where now all of a sudden I was the least successful member of the team simply by the fact that I was the last to join.
Yeah, I love that. I love being an underdog.
Oh, like, it was.
You tell me something I can't do. Oh.
Yeah, and I was the same way, but then I was told, like, I wasn't told I couldn't. I just went out looking for the business to find out that I could work my ass off and bring in $500 every 2 weeks when I should be bringing in $5,000 every week.
Yeah.
And that's what the reality was, right? I was bringing on accounts that other people couldn't get on, but they weren't amounting to anything. And what that did was I never realized how much of my value, my self value, how much of that came from my ability to perform and contribute.
Define perform and contribute.
Well, so like my ability to, from a professional standpoint, my ability to generate sales, to make a difference, to contribute to the team, to push that ball forward, to move the needle in whatever capacity I was employed with, right? Okay. And what that did was it sent me down a vicious spiral where I was overwhelmed with the need to contribute and make a difference. My circumstances weren't really allowing me to do that in a way that I deemed was successful. And because of that, became absolute riddled with anxiety.
So when you have mental health issues, they manifest as anxiety?
So I think I've always had anxiety for a very, very, very long time. But it's only in the last 2 years that it's become debilitating.
Okay. I mean, obviously, this is your podcast. It's not my podcast, but we both have formal education in psychology. I'm also a mental health advocate. I've sat on the board of directors for mental health related not for profits. Like, I've been around this space for a long time. I spend a lot of time with Channel, who are overwhelmed. Their warm line now for people who need help is overwhelmed. So I do exist in this space a little bit. Are you comfortable with, I assume, you and I having a no holds barred conversation about mental health and mental illness?
This is not my podcast. This is our conversation.
Excellent. You say about 2 years?
Yeah.
Are you medicated now?
Yeah.
Okay. How long have you been medicated?
So only probably about a month and a half. And I got to be honest with you, I understand completely why people don't get on this stuff, because it was a total bitch to get on.
And you're not even there yet.
No,
Really?
maybe not. No, I'm starting to level. You know what? Listen, the last time I went to the doctor right before all this COVID stuff went down, she was trying to switch me from one brand to another brand. And I went home that day and I kind of felt like with everything that was going on, she wasn't really listening to what I was saying. So I didn't rush the transition and I stayed on the Zoloft because initially, man, I found myself in front of a client sitting on a chair in their kitchen, literally like almost falling asleep because it.
And when I first, so I first started on, now for me it was for depression, but I did, and it took years to get there, but I got a really good relationship with my GP, and she was actually a real estate client. That's how I met her. She moved her business to St. John's, and bought a place up on Cordelia Crescent in Pine Ridge, and I named my daughter Cordelia. Not related. I'm a Shakespeare fan. And anyway, we had been talking about it for a really long time, and I finally went into it, and she said, these are drugs that I have historically had success with patients who fit your demographic.
Gotcha.
So you do your own research. I trust you, and we can have a conversation about it and pick one. And I tried Zoloft. And I'm no shame in saying one of the reasons I tried it is because a lot of other SSRIs, so selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, that help with anxiety and depression, depression in lower doses, often anxiety in higher doses. A lot of them, they have sexual side effects. So a loss of sex drive. And to be 100% honest, I wasn't down with having a loss of sex drive. I just didn't. So I wasn't okay with it. So I tried the Zoloft and I didn't have a loss of sex drive, but man, what it did to me, I wasn't depressed. I was just flat out numb. Like at the time, my wife at the time, she opened an at-home childcare center, a day home.
Yeah.
And prior to starting on the drug, I would like play with the two little boys who were there and like climb over me and body slam and stuff, because I got a little girl, so man, she's tough, she likes that stuff, but it's a little bit different.
It's totally different.
Yeah. And after I started taking it, I mean, they're climbing up and I'm going through the motions. I couldn't care less, and I was just like, I know I'm supposed to like this and I'm supposed to feel something, but I don't.
Do you have any idea? And so and you know what, that has a lot to do with it, because I've had a very similar description from other people who said the exact same thing, but about a different brand name of SSRI.
Yeah. So I switched to something called Cipralex.
Okay.
And I have that's one of the names for it. I have a couple of friends who are on it, and that one treated me really well. So did you move from Zoloft after or no?
No, she gave me a description for, she gave me a description. Yes. Also, she gave me a prescription for another kind. And that was basically when COVID hit, and I'll be damned if I'm going to a pharmacy right now.
I hear you, man.
But no, listen, honestly, I just kept on chugging along with my Zoloft prescription. And every now and again, I can really feel that it's there, right? Like every now and again, like today I was sitting on the couch and it makes me feel a certain way that is very difficult to describe. And for the last couple of weeks, the last week or so, I haven't really noticed that. Today I did, but it's often in times when I'm the most at peace because there's nothing to distract me. So I'm very aware of what my body is doing. Right. Because I throw the joke into that I'm a big man, but as a big man who's always carried himself in a certain way, I am very self-aware, not only like physically, but emotionally and physiologically too, as well, to be aware of what it's doing to me. And initially I really hated it. I did not like the way it was making me feel whatsoever. But I gave it the time that it needed, and it's made a huge difference. Now, to be honest with you, there's another part of that conversation that I need to have with you about how I was working in a job that was very high stress. It was a corporate environment. It lacked creativity, and I wasn't doing anything creative. I had no outlet. And you actually told me when I seen you at where did I see you?
I don't even remember, man.
The microbrewery in Mount Pearl.
Oh, Landwash.
Landwash. I seen you at Landwash. I think that was the last day that I worked with the boys, because that was a Friday at like 4:00.
Yeah.
And the following Tuesday, we were on a conference call. No, the following Monday, we were on a conference call and told, don't visit any more customers. Don't come to the office. Right. But what happened was I was on a conference call and I found out with like hundreds of other people at the same time that I was getting laid off from the job. I knew it was coming. It wasn't any big surprise. It was still a bit of a punch in the gut from a pride standpoint, but it no, it is ego, 100%. And but instantly I had within an hour I had an incredible idea, and I haven't had good ideas in a very long time.
The fostering an environment in which like you are a survivor.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
You are a survivor, and I'm a survivor. No matter what happens to our local or our global economy right now, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm a survivor, and I'm a doer. So if everything burns down, it'll be a level playing field again, and I'll start again. Just like a few years ago when I made a couple of bad business decisions and I ended up bankrupt. I started again. Right. And now I got 2 TV shows and this business and that business. And so you're a survivor, just like I am. If all of this crumbles, you'll still be fine.
Because we'll figure something out.
And because it'll always be a level. I did a good job making that level, didn't I? That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
It'll always be a level playing field. And whenever it's a level playing field, survivors will always be okay. So you and Amy and Rooney, you guys are always going to be fine because Dad's a survivor.
So the interesting thing that I find about that is I want people to be encouraged in this time where, they're sitting at home, they're trying not to pull their hair out because they're realizing that, their kid is the problem, not the teacher or whatever, you know what I mean? And that kind of stuff. Like, I've made the joke several times that having a kid is the best way to kill yourself. No, sorry. The joke was having a kid is the absolute best way to ruin your life. That's what it was.
Oh, listen, so a good buddy of mine who I play hockey with, he says that having a child is horrible 99% of the time. You sleep less, you have sex less, you got less time, you see less of your friends, everything in your life, you got less money, everything in your life is worse all of the time. Having a kid is horrible 99% of the time. But that 1% is so powerful.
So good.
That somehow it makes it worth it.
Right.
And I think that might be the second best piece of dad advice that I've ever been given.
Yeah, so I need to rephrase earlier for anybody who listened to that and takes a soundbite that having a kid is the best way to kill yourself. So the joke was having a kid is the absolute best way to ruin your life. It's like slowly giving life to another person. It's like slowly killing yourself to give life to another person is what it
Like
was, right?
you're hauling your life force out to give it
Yeah.
to another human being.
Every parent has either seen or shared that friggin' meme on Facebook, right?
Super true.
Um, so so with the warm line and all that stuff, they're obviously they're seeing a huge spike right now. Like
Yeah.
people have got to be super. I cannot imagine how lonely some people must be right now.
But it's not even necessarily the loneliness. I mean, it is, but it's the uncertainty,
Yeah,
right? Like you can be really, really lonely, but know that your partner is on their way home from offshore and you're going to see him soon. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel and you're looking forward to it. And there's a brightness and you can hook yourself onto that brightness and like ride it, right?
right.
When you don't really have an end in sight and uncertainty is the prevalent feeling, it's really, really hard to keep everything cool. Like I'm a big fan of the power of our own thoughts and of your mindset. You're having the right mindset can change everything in your day. Literally everything, as long as you keep your head straight. And it's really, really easy to have a clear thought pattern of a positive mindset when everything's going really, really well. But when everything's going really well, there's no value in it. The
Right.
value comes when everything is shit, and you can still be positive about the long term and what you're going to do to put yourself there. So that's the crux of it. Like knowing right now that everything is really hard for a lot of people, and if you are one of those people and everything's really hard right now, this is when the power, this is when you need to like suck it up and really find and really feel that truth deep down that you can make it happen. And this goes back to being a survivor, John. When you can make it happen, now is when that has power. Because when there's money in the bank and the sun is shining, you can be as positive as you want. It doesn't have an impact.
Well, I made the joke the other day to somebody that nobody cares about being broke in the summertime. Everybody's always broke in the summertime. You're always spending your money on gas or food or drinks or good times with your friends out on a deck and enjoying your life, right? Because the worst case scenario, just sleep on the grass.
Right?
Right. But it's yeah, listen, man, I think for a lot of people coming from the church background, I think a lot of people get they get that solidarity from a sense of community. And don't get me wrong, I think Newfoundland, it definitely has a strong sense of community and pockets of community. Even my street, dude, the street that I moved to in CBS has a neighborhood chat. It's incredible. People are sending messages saying, "Hey, I'm going to the store. Who needs milk?" Right? Like, dude, it's amazing. It's the most phenomenal thing in the world. But I also remember a point in time in my life where I was surrounded by people in university, and I would go home and literally was so lonely in my apartment room that I would stay up until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning watching YouTube videos and then miss classes the next day because I literally just couldn't fall asleep with the fact that I was so alone or felt so alone.
That was me the night before last.
Yeah. And you know what? Dude, if I was in this, straight up, if I was in the situation that you're in right now, I got a really good friend of mine who split from his wife. He was in a really bad place mentally at the time. He had attempted suicide. His wife left, took the kid. They've been 3 years now. He's been trying to get his parental rights back. He's medicated. He's now actually remarried, and he's got a bunch of his parental rights back. So it's a great story, but the reality is that man was in a very, very difficult position, and it was his community that pulled him out of it or helped pull him out of it.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you corrected yourself and said helped, because we do it ourselves. And if you don't do it yourself, it's never going to happen. But you can't do it yourself.
Right.
Like, you need a support system, but but when it comes down to it, it needs to be the individual who changes their own life.
So let's switch gears real quick, because I think we're coming up on close on an hour, which is not hard to believe considering it's me and you and we can talk for days.
Listen,
And
I
I
could have done
guarantee,
an hour. I could have done an hour if you weren't here.
no, yeah, 100%. I could have done an hour without you too, as well. Probably. This is the reality of it. It's much better together, though. I do agree.
Agree, absolutely. And
So,
we're going to do another one. We're going to do more.
yeah, 100%. I can't believe, and I'm just like the last one got 500 views in 24 hours, which for me, for a 50-minute video, I thought was ridiculous.
Like, I'm proud of you. Now, these are YouTube analytics?
I don't know. I just looked at the views on the bottom.
Yeah, but was it on Facebook or is it on YouTube?
No, on YouTube.
Okay, so you got to go into your analytics and you got to see your average view length.
Okay.
Like, they could count like 4 seconds of auto scroll as a view. So you got to go look at your analytics and see how you're actually doing.
Don't deflate my balloon. Don't deflate my balloon. Okay, so here's the last little teaser that I'll use for all of my religious followers. I know that you so number one, you've always known that I was an evangelical Christian, born and raised, that whole thing. We've actually got some church friends in common from your hometown.
A bunch of them.
And you had once told me in a meeting, and it was a conversation that we never really got to unpack, that you had read the Bible from start to finish.
It was a long, long time ago, man.
So when was that, and what stage of your life, and what prompted you to do that?
I guess it would have been high school.
Okay.
So, when I was in high school, I wanted to do speed reading, and I went to the guidance counselor, because apparently that's who you go to when you want to talk about speed reading, and there was an analysis done of my comprehension.
I think in the late 90s, no matter what you wanted to talk about, you were going to the guidance counselor.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I learned that I was slow. I wasn't a quick reader at all, but my comprehension was sort of off the charts. And he said, like, you need to find something that you can read. And he would give me, like, I'm going to use, this is from CRA, because I'm trying to log in to apply for the subsidy thing.
Right.
We said, like, if you're reading something, you need to understand, like, what your dominant eye is and what your less dominant eye is. And you need, like, a certain structure of paragraph to make it easier. You got to angle it a certain way, and certain font and size makes it easier to train yourself. So for me, Mom just had a Bible that worked.
Really?
The parameters.
Okay.
So I read the Bible.
Well, it's interesting because you don't claim to be do you claim a Christianity as a banner?
I grew up Catholic.
Okay.
I was a liturgical minister in our local church in Chapel Arm. Sacred Heart was the name of the church. So I would read in church all through high school, university, and then even afterwards, when it, like, even now, if I go home over Christmas or over just some random weekend and I go to church with Mom, I absolutely know that, like, Ellen is going to come out, or Helen, sorry, is going to come out and say, "Would you read tonight?" It's going to happen, and like, because I'm a bit of a public speaker.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, that's the thing. But
you enunciate well.
Why spank you? No, sorry. Why? No. So I don't, but I don't currently really associate, I don't identify
So do me a solid and unpack, like, if you have a belief system, if you have a faith system, and what it looks like.
I think that there are rules that connect the entirety of existence. And if you understand, and when I say rules, I mean almost like from a physical or a scientific perspective. Like they're like gravity as a law, that kind of
Sure.
thing, right?
Yeah.
I think if you connect all of those together, that gives you an understanding of all things. So if you could, it's almost, a lot of people refer to it as reductionism. If you could take every piece of existence, like every piece of matter, and go smaller, smaller, smaller. Yeah, that's made up of all these things. But what are those made up of? And you get all the way down to the smallest basic elements. And you could map out how every single bit of the tiniest bits of matter would interact with every other individual bits of the tiniest bits of matter, and then chain those together and write an algorithm. You could effectively predict the rest of time.
Really? So you think that based on chemical interactions, you think that we could, and trust me now, I don't want my tone to change because I don't want this to seem critical. I actually find this very interesting. You think that that based on a purely chemical scientific level, you could understand all human behavior, but not only human behavior, but like um
all of existence.
all of existence as it relates to us on Earth.
Further than us on Earth.
Right. Okay. So,
yeah. But if we had access to the data to understand what happens on another planet or in another dimension or in heaven or in, like, if you had all of the information about, it's like math. If you know all of the properties of every integer from 1 to 10, then you know everything about math and how they operate with one another. So you can predict what happens when you line them all up in a certain way. So kind of the same thing, just on a way larger scale. But to add more to that, I'm also a believer that you can manipulate things to your benefit if you understand how these things interact.
Okay. So any sort of faith that you have would be in science, basically. Like that would be your grand reassurance in the questions of the universe.
Grand reassurance in the questions of the universe. See, I think that I understand what faith means. So like in Catholicism, just like tradition, faith has a capital F.
Okay.
Right? Like it's a thing. So I understand what it means. It's not so much that I place my faith in science. My faith is in myself as somebody who has ability to dictate the way my life will progress.
Gotcha.
And my faith is in myself because I have a firm belief that is unwavering that I can accomplish whatever I want to accomplish if it comes from a place of purity and it doesn't come from a place whereby I'm taking from others.
See, and thereby that there's not a big difference in that, because the only difference there that what I believe sort of is that everything that strives me for the good of my family and for the good of others, I feel is stirred by God.
Okay.
Like I feel like that uprising, that the connection that is immeasurable between you and I having a good conversation. I believe that there's something divine with that, whereas you would think that there would be pheromones and we really just want to hook up.
Well, see, here's the thing. Further to my belief, I don't think it matters, because you and I can sit down with the same mathematical problem. It can be 2 times 3 equals 6. And you just know that 2 times 3 equals 6 because it's in your faith and it was taught to you. And I'll create a factor tree and I'll work my way down and I'll go to the basic pieces of 2 times 3 and I'll add them all up. 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 6. And we'll get the same answer. So practically speaking, our lives will be the same. It's just we got there a different way. And
Right.
if we're both good people, then I couldn't care I don't think it matters.
Yeah, and so this brings me back to another point that I've had, another conversation that I've had with a lot of evangelical Christians, in that, you know, the church as a whole has always had been on a bit of, you know, we've always been on a bit of a high horse, and a bit of a high horse is obviously, you know,
Dude,
an understatement. But
I'm
the reality is that a lot of the culture that I came from as Christians is so condescending and so critical, when in reality the Bible says, why are you pointing at the speck in his eye when you've got a right? So what I tell people all the time, they always ask me, so what do you believe about this, or what do you believe about drinking, or what do you believe about this or that or whatever else? And the only reason is because I don't want to get into a bunch of other topics with you, that I don't unpack those further. But the reality is I'm like, it doesn't matter, because my faith walk is about me.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the respect, that's the reason that I've got, that I get respect from atheists and agnostics and universalists and whatever, is because I put the focus on the fact that faith in God is what works for me.
Yes.
I don't believe that it's a crutch, which, you know, I can understand how people feel that way. It's just that in the grand divinity of the universe, Jesus and God are what makes the most sense to me.
And you know what? That's absolutely fine. So here's the way I would say that. You are smart enough to know what makes you happy.
Right.
And this is, I shouldn't have said smart enough to know, self-aware enough to know
Sure.
what makes you happy, because I don't want to make it about intelligence. I'm self-aware enough to know that I'm not smart enough to know that there either is or is not a God.
Right.
Sits on a cloud and has a beard, or like does magic and creates a universe, or is the summation of the face of every human that ever lived, or whatever way you want to look at it.
Right.
I'm smart enough to know that I can't possibly know that. But in saying that I can't possibly know that, I would be a massive hypocrite if I simultaneously said, I know that it isn't. So my self-awareness comes from a place whereby I'm open to the possibility of everything. I'm open to the possibility of the fact that I'm actually inside your dream now, and you created all of this. So I can't look at somebody and say, yeah, listen, when you read the Quran, you're full of shit. How can I do that?
You can't.
Like, I can't, right? So religion is not innate in us. The desire to look for answers is innate in us,
Yeah.
which is why you have people from all over the world who all have totally different belief systems that they arrived on independently. I wouldn't be Catholic if my mom wasn't Catholic.
Right.
You wouldn't be an evangelical if your community didn't, if you weren't raised, if you didn't make a decision at some point to be a part of that.
Dude,
So,
I highly expect that I would not be Pentecostal if my dad didn't feel the call to be a Pentecostal preacher, because the reality is that number one, my animosity for authority and my general tendency towards self-destruction, neither one of those play well with the faith in Christ.
you're the worst.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah,
and simultaneously the best, as we all are.
Because all it matters is authenticity and honesty and integrity. If you have all of those things, then I respect whatever your particular faith practice is. I personally believe, okay, can we get into this for a second? I have a theory surrounding COVID. Do we have enough time for this?
No, we do. We got all the time.
Okay. So I think this is my universal structure of how I understand the way the world works, combined with this pandemic.
Okay, this is going to be a great way to end. So sum it up nice, okay?
I'm not making fun. Okay, I promise I'm not making fun. But I like. Okay, so Louis C.K.
Sure.
Turned out to be a bit of a perv.
Right.
But was always very, very funny. He was asked in an interview one time, if he thought there was a joke, because he's always so like, he was asked if he thought that there was a topic that was too serious to joke about. And he said, a topic that's too serious to joke about is kind of like a disease that's too bad to try and cure. Because, and to me, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So I would like anybody who's listening to take this with a grain of salt, but I do find it fascinating. It's a thought experiment, okay? So I believe that COVID-19 was started by me and JP Sachs, the musician. So you know the song, "If the world was ending, you come over, right? You come over and you
Yeah.
So I don't.
Which, by the way, freaked me totally out when it came on the road and in the radio the other day when I was driving home and the roads were empty.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So this is a multi-part conversation. So that song, the lyrics of it, they're fantastical, right? Everybody, and you can admit or you cannot, but everybody who listens to the song pictures a person, whether it's your wife, whether it's the one that got away, whether it's the one you always wish there was a thing. They are in your fantasy of that song. The world is ending. You can go spend one last night with somebody. You don't have to. It literally says all our fears would be irrelevant.
Yeah.
We wouldn't need to care about the fact that it didn't work, about the fact that I have a person who I told, like, this song makes me think of you. Like, you're the girl in that song for me. And she was like, you're the guy in that song for me. But like, it doesn't necessarily mean that like in real life it works, but everybody has a fantasy surrounding that song.
Right.
Put that aside for a second. I also believe, because I don't think you cannot, that the universe has physical properties. And you can, just like on a calculator, you can hit 1 + 1 equals, and every single time you will get 2. Because there are certain underlying truths that always add up to a certain result, right?
Yep.
So if you take that to an extreme, you can manifest certain reactions from the universe, and you get all woo-woo. You can create certain things you want to create by inputting certain actions. And I think that's undeniable. Let's take my fantasy about the world ending that I'm thinking about in my head every time I hear that song. And it's on 15 minutes, by the way, is the recycle time for popular songs when people buy enough space.
Okay.
15 minutes. That's why you always hear the same damn song on the radio all the time.
All the time.
And I'm in real estate. I spend a lot of time in my car. So not just me, but hundreds of millions of people are listening to the song over and over and over again and having a fantasy about the end of the world and their long lost love. Every single one of them. All of them. Hundreds of millions. So myself, in conjunction with JP Sachs, and I'm really, really sorry to whatever her name is. I forget the girl who sings it with her, but I believe he wrote it. We started the end of the world through fantasy and manifested this by calling upon the universe with our thoughts to create our reality, because in physics, there's a like attracts like sort of thing. So I'm really sorry, everybody. This is my fault.
You know what's funny? I'm just so surprised that someone as smart and well-spoken as you would come up with such an asinine theory.
Listen, okay, so you tell me, if we're going to create an assumption, because you are a scientist of sorts.
Of sorts, yeah.
Let's create an assumption that the law of attraction is real.
Right.
And that's a concrete, definitive, 100% accurate thing. There's nothing wrong with my theory.
Listen, man, it's as good as anything else I've heard.
What, I ate soup with bats in it and now the world is dying? Get off me.
Listen, I think that's as good a place as any to end, my friend.
Sounds good to me, brother.
All right. Well, listen, I do greatly appreciate your time. Thanks for taking your night out to do this. I will give you a heads up when it comes up, but thanks for being here, man. And once again, it goes back the other way anytime you need it.
Feel free to tag all of the things I'm related to when you post it, just because, I mean, what you're doing is really cool. It comes from a place of love and respect and purity. You're just trying to tell really good stories. And if there's any way that the tiniest bit of leverage I have can assist you, then I would like you to abuse it.
I appreciate that very much.
My pleasure, brother.
All right, buddy.
Bye.
Hey guys, once again, thanks for tuning in. I hope you made it all the way to the end. We really do appreciate you following along. And if you have any questions or you have any disagreeing opinions, I'd love to have those conversations as well. You can hit me up with a direct message to the YouTube channel, and I'll get back to you. I'd love to get some community engagement on this and have even the discussions that are contrary to the beliefs that we're putting out in this podcast. So if that's something that interests you, by all means, get a hold of me. Have a great day. God bless.